Alright, let's go ahead and look at this classwork problem together. Alright, we're comparing two different taxi companies. So the problem says to take a taxi in downtown Denver, it will cost you $3 initial fare plus $2 per mile with Denver Yellow Cab. The cost varies linearly with the distance traveled. Okay, so that means we're dealing with a linear relationship, and we have a couple of amounts here that are important for us. The $3 initial fare plus the $2 per mile that the Denver Yellow Cab Company charges. So the first thing we want to do is come over here and to complete our table. Okay, so when we have an initial fee or initial fare, that means the cab company is charging us before we drive any miles at all. So our initial fee is going to go in to our cost column even before any miles have been traveled. Now the $2 per mile fee is going to increase with each mile that we go up. So take a moment to fill out the table. You can hit pause on the video while you do that and see if you can fill in the table based on the initial fare and the $2 per mile charge. Now the second column is asking us to write an equation expressing the cost, C, in terms of miles D traveled. Now remember, when we're dealing with linear equations, often we write these equations in the form of y equals mx plus b, where m is our constant rate of change, or our slope, and b is our beginning point, or our y-intercept. Now think back to our dollar amounts up here in our problem. Which of these is going to be the m, the constant rate of change, and which one is going to be the b, the beginning point, or the initial fee? Now in this case, instead of using y and x, the problem is asking us to use c for cost and d for the miles traveled. So instead of y equals mx plus b, we're going to be using different variables. So our y column over here in the table is our cost. So y is actually going to be, in this case, the c equals something, right? And instead of x, we're going to use d plus something. Alright, so once we have this equation figured out, we want to go on to the next problem that asks how much will it cost you to travel 10 miles in a taxi? Now we could solve this several different ways. We could come back here to our table, and we've gone from 0 to 8 in our miles column. We could continue that on to 10 miles. In this case, it's asking to use the equation to find your answer. So how could we use our equation to figure out how much the cost would be after 10 miles in the taxi? Alright, so this next question here is saying calculate the cost intercept. Okay, so this probably should say y-intercept, or the beginning, the y-intercept. So what does the y-intercept number represent in the real world? And then down here, what is the slope, and what does this number represent in this particular problem? So you're going to use complete sentences to solve that, or to answer those two questions. Once you've finished those problems, you'll continue on to the next taxi company, the Metro Taxi Denver, which has slightly different numbers, different fares. and you'll continue the same process to solve each of those questions.